Приветствую наших слушателей и
Good
зрителей.
morning, good afternoon, good day, dear listeners. Today we are discussing preservation of the native tongue, native language, within the framework of the digital environment. Here today in our discussion, we have several language activists who will be discussing the new environment, the new format. And today we have Olga Urasinova. She's a teacher of Udmurt language, and she's Udmurt activist. And she also runs a channel in Telegram, Udmurt language in the quarantine. And we also have Teimuraz Ptimirov, who is the researcher of the Ossetian language, and he is a translator of public network VKontakte, and he's a messenger telegram in the Ossetian language, and he's also the language activist. So what is in common between our two guests? Olga is Udmurt language representative, Teimuraz is a Ossetian language representative. Both languages are Republican languages. They have the status of the Republican languages. And exactly these people can tell us about the novelties, about the tools that are used to protect and preserve the native tongue in the Republic. Teimuraz, please tell us about the situation with the Ossetian language in the digital space. Thanks to the activists and private initiative, the Ossetian language is integrating into the digital space. First of all, this is due to digital media and public media networks. Recently, we made a translation in the Russian network of VKontakte, in the Contact. We also have a channel in the Telegram Messenger. We have applications, and we have dictionaries, including the children, so that they can learn the Ossetian language using pictures and drawings. And we also have such goal as to use Yandex, which is Russian Google translator. It is hard to predict the date of the release, but it will be nice to have the automatic internet-based translation facility software for Russian Ossetian translation. There are also YouTube channels, and we have Ossetian TV on YouTube, as well as various groups in Instagram, Telegram, and VKontakte. Maybe step by step, we will be developing and expanding. Now, Olga, question for you. So, Ossetian language is not yet in the Yandex translator function. What about Udmurt language? Good morning, good day, dear listeners, dear viewers. We have quite a number of Udmurts. 550,000 people are registered as Udmurt in Russia, and 350,000 people are considering Udmurt language as their native tongue. And of course, we have Yandex Translator application, and we need to work to develop this wonderful tool. But basically, it translates quite well some simple phrases, but not complicated. We also have Yandex Navigator facility that is used by the drivers, and it is supported by Udmurt language, our voice in the Udmurt language. In ВКонтакте, we made a translation quite long ago, and I did the translation myself for ВКонтакте. ВКонтакте requires a lot of efforts to support it and to develop it, so we will continue this work. In addition to this, in addition to social networks, ВКонтакте is used in all regions of Russia, including Udmurt Republic, but there is certain public and Insta bloggers. And a couple of years ago, we had Instagram bloggers. There was a contents between them. And Udmurt language is moving to TikTok, and we have quite a popular TikToker who are popular not among Udmurt only, but among the Russian speakers. Speaking of internet projects, I would like to mention Quaran. It's an interesting project. They produce a video of good quality, and they have a special course of Udmurt language for English speakers, and they have various researchers and scientists that are discussing various topics related to Udmurt language and Udmurt culture. And of course, the most active people are young people who are working on the content of these sites and platforms. I would also like to single out an interesting story. That's games, table games that are on Udmurt language. We have an analog of Mafia, analog of Erudit, and to make up Udmurt languages, Udmurt words, and also Uno. We have 4 games, table games, that are popular, and they are in Udmurt language. As for digital environment, digital space, we have wonderful application, Kildishin, developed by Grisha Grigoriev, who also worked on the Navigator. And we have released, and we're still releasing, 2 podcasts, which are being posted at the moment. And what we're doing is that we are reading literary works. And the second podcast was political discussions and social discussion, interesting topics, using the up-to-date lexics words of the Udmurt language. So far, it is based on the initiative of just a few people. In brief, I would like to tell you about my own projects. During the COVID quarantine, I launched the course Udmurt language on quarantine because I feel there is a need for this. Of course, I cannot cover all and everything. I would love to teach the world to speak Udmurt language, but I'm in short of time. So I launched this program, this course. There are 17 lessons, and topic after topic, we are learning how to use Udmurt language for particular purposes. And this is a base course of Udmurt language. You can do this independently. You can find it in YouTube. And there is homework, the keys with the right answers, the presentations, and I try to visualize it to the maximum so that it would be maximally useful and understandable for people, because people like diagrams and schemes, they like visual effects. So this is what I use to the maximum. And this course, the language course, thanks to it, I became known to people. I receive calls. People want to contact me and to develop this topic. So if you have any additional questions or something needs to be clarified, please, you're welcome. It's a wonderful initiative, wonderful of your of the people who think the same, who are common-minded people. Maybe Teimuraz, you have similar things like podcasts in Ossetian language or the neighboring languages. Well, we have video podcasts, definitely. I don't know what is the number. There are very few Ossetian podcasts, just a few of them. There is a lot to be done here, but we still do not understand if there is a demand for this sort of product and what kind of topics should be covered. And I think, as I feel it, it is being done quite well by the national television in the Republic. I was writing podcasts as lessons for my students, and they were recorded in the format of podcasts. But I don't know many of other podcasts. So there are no visual bloggers in the national languages. Yes, there are practically none. There is a long way to go. Maybe this is related to that the number of potential viewers, the audience, is quite limited, especially among young people. Of course, we need people who would be able to explain themselves well in our language, who would be educated and enough. But we also need people who would consume this content. And there is a shortage on both sides. We are limited in our resources, and we are limited in demand for this kind of products. But this is my personal opinion. I think it's a serious bottleneck. How Udmurt people overcome this generation gap. Of course, there is a younger generation willing to consume this content. There is very young people who are ready to consume it technically from the technical support, but their language is not at the level to fully perceive the information in Udmurt language. They know the language only basically, and they can listen and understand, but not speak. It is difficult for me to answer this question straightforwardly. At the moment, we probably do not have such formats that would be easily consumed by those who do not speak the language too much. The TikTokers, the Instagram bloggers, short information, and we have internet TV in Udmurt language. It is entertaining channel, and the hosts are young people. In fact, all the content is created by young people, but the consumers are the young people and the older people.
So I don't feel this problem. I've never thought about it before. Well, we are discussing different things. I'm talking about there is entertainment content and there are podcasts that that enable the growth of the language and its development. If it's just entertainment, then its status goes down and down. One of the main goals of the digital development of any language should be to raise its prestige and its status. It's not just something for fun. This is serious things, and I believe that the Ossetian language is also the language of interface, the language of knowledge, of some brand new information, and not some information, old information, folklore. Not only that, if we if we limit ourselves with the language, meaning that we use it only for legends and fairy tales, then it is wrong. The language should be able to describe everything that is around, everything that is contemporary, and we need to learn to use the language nowadays in the modern reality. Some jokes and some anecdotes as well, something that is very interesting and popular right now. I can also share my screen and show you the presentation. We have an Instagram blogger back in Ossetia. I agree with you, Timoras. I believe that I want the Udmurt language not to be the language of the village, the local language, but internet cannot raise the level of any language alone. There are two factors. First factor is family, and the second factor is the government support and the social space, public space. If you see the language only on the internet, then it's not the same, we believe it to be strange when you live in the digital world and you see the Udmurt language only in this digital world. So in this case, I believe that the situation with the Udmurt language, there are many people who came to learn the Udmurt language and who came to love it, thanks to camps, youth camps organized in Udmurtia. I know some guys who didn't speak the Udmurt language in their families, but after these youth camps, they saw that it is a live language, that it is used by other people, not only on the internet. And the creation of this entertainment content, we shouldn't forget the music in Udmurt language. And I believe that there's a lot of that content. We have rap in Udmurt, we have electronic music in Udmurt. What else? Not trip hop, of course, but we have many music genres, and thanks to that, people started getting attracted to the language. Also, table games. These entertainment segments can make people interested, but they cannot be something significant. It can be the most significant reason and argument. There should be other factors as well. It seems to me that there is it's a certain conservation of the language. So we are trying to develop its vocabulary, etc. But at the same time, the main authority and respect to the language comes from the family. Also, the presence of the language in the real world as well. So you believe that you are talking about the priority of offline over online. Offline is the more significant thing, but we don't know what will happen in 5 years, because right now the first toy for any kid is a smartphone, and we don't know how they will perceive the digital world and our lockdown style of life as well. If we talk about families, not all families that are trying to bring love for the Ossetian language, not all kids in such families speak the Ossetian language. This is not the golden rule. The family can respect the Ossetian language. They can speak only Ossetian with kids, but the kids will not speak Ossetian. Sometimes it happens that. Why does it happen? This is just some psychology, because they don't communicate in this language in the kindergarten. So the first factor is family, as I told you, and the second factor is the social space, public usage of the language. I agree with you. The digital world, in part, compensates for the lack of the public space for the Ossetian language. Everything that we do is the digital space, and we can't work offline, for instance. We can make it omnipresent everywhere. So we are doing our best to ensure that the language is present everywhere in the digital world, and we're trying to compensate for the failures of the offline world. And so, do you have any cartoons? How is the children content developed? We have cartoons in Ossetian. We have Soviet cartoons, animated films translated into Ossetian. We have some contemporary cartoons. Masha and the Bear, the famous cartoon, is translated into Ossetian. Disney and Pixar films as well. 4 or 5 films. I even have an online masterclass dedicated to one of the movie. We work with this movie. So this is dubbing, yeah, very high quality dubbing. We had a nice voice cast as well, wonderful music, and everything was dubbed at a high level. So this is the work of activists. So there was no authorship issues resolved. I cannot upload this on YouTube, so we can just see this film if I give you the link. There are some cartoons, but most people don't know about it, and people get to know about this cartoon only via my link. For example, the kid can grow up, and only many years later his parents will learn that there are some cartoons in Ossetian. So this is the problem. I would like to add, talking about the about replenishing the gaps in the Ossetian content. This is very high competition, not only with the Russian language, but also with the English language. In the future, we will speak about the Russian language, because so that the kids are perceiving the content in the Russian language, because the English content is more high quality and it has a wider range. So it's very hard to rival that. I would say we'll see. We'll see. Russia is not the country where people speak fluent English. Many parents do their best so that their kids can talk English. So the number of interpreters and translators is not that high. And taking into account our general education level of the English language. So taking all that into account, I'm not sure we'll have to wait and see for this competition between English and Russian. It's wonderful that we have listed all the products of the Ossetian language and the Udmurt language. I would like to draw attention to the fact that if we talk about some national languages, if we talk about some languages that are older than 200 years, there are 150 languages, and only a small part of these languages are like the Udmurt language and the Ossetian language. Only a small part of these languages get some state support. Mostly they are not talked about. So 500,000 people is a lot, and we also have 50 languages that are on the list of the local peoples from the Far East and the north of the Russian Federation. These are communities. They do not speak the language, but we talk about the number of those who identify themselves as the certain tribe. So 50,000 is the limit. If you have more than 50,000, you are not supposed to be of a small number. But if the number of population is lower than 50,000, Nancy, Evankins, and Hunties, they have about 45,000 people. There are also 1,000 tribe, 5,000 tribe, 10,000 tribe. There are 50 languages, a small number of population. And if we speak about them, we shouldn't forget that not all of them speak this certain language. That this and they don't have such a promoted status like the Udmurt language or the Ossetian language. And we speak about the language community, numerically insignificant, numerically very small in numbers. And these are the older generation who speak this language. Grandparents, they become great grandparents right now. So those people who really speak the language, and soon they will leave us in the future. So we speak about the languages of the numerically insignificant peoples. We speak about the 30, 40, maybe sometimes 50-year-old people who don't speak this language. In Siberia, in the Far East, 60 plus age, WhatsApp and Instagram are quite popular. You know, for the west regions of Moscow, it may be a joke. This is just a condition of the digital world, but people who are farther than the Ural Mountains, they live in different conditions. They don't have high-quality smartphones, and they sometimes don't know how to go to the internet, how to browse, how to find information. They don't use social media. It may sound strange for you, but this is the reality. You know, to have the opportunity to contact their relatives, they overcome this technological barrier, and in 6 at 65, they are creating Instagram pages, not to make posts about food or something else, but just to have an opportunity to be in contact with you, with their relatives. And when we have these 50 numerically insignificant speakers, you, as being the representatives of the languages that are better represented, thanks to the work of activists and the work of professors, of teachers, thanks to the self-identity, and thanks to those families who are patriots of their languages, what can you do with the communities where they don't have any native speakers at all, almost no native speakers? They don't have the technological opportunities. We talked about offline or online priority, but there is no online there beyond the Ural Mountains. There are many methods, but it's very, we can't organize that. It's very hard to organize such work. They live in some settlements, villages. They have 5 official jobs, to earn their living.
И все. И дальше, допустим, еще там, если повезет, то фельдшер и учитель. А, как правило, ни школ, ни больниц, ничего.
But there are no schools, no hospitals. I know such settlements with about 300 residents, and that applies to about 70% of settlements to the west, to the east of the Urals. But this is exactly where the native speakers live. Why can't we transfer their knowledge? Why can't we pick up their wisdom in the language? Just because they every day they have to survive, and this is not the survival of the language. That's the everyday survival of people. Language is really secondary in their lives. It is not that important that then they have to survive. How to build bridges between the older generation and younger generation, when the younger generation do not want to know anything about older people. I work with these people. I go to these settlements to do my research. And of course, I can do a lot while I'm there, but I feel real pain when I see such a situation. What is the way the language activist should act? What would be the practical advice?
Olga Timur.
Olga Timur. It's quite difficult to understand the situation in reality to the east of the Urals while I'm here in Ossetia. Speaking of my language, Ossetian language, it has a certain ritual character, a ritual nature, because this is the language of prayers and services in the church. Also, various customs like funeral or marriage are also accompanied by this language, by our own language, Ossetian language. All the prayers are in the Ossetian, while people can speak Russian for everyday communications and use Ossetian for religious purposes. And I think this helps the language to survive its difficult period in history. I don't know how it happens with other languages. Maybe there are some ritual practices in other peoples, and this can be used to preserve the language. But language is practice. Language is a tool of communications, and if we cannot use this tool, it gets rusted, and we're losing it on the way. If people do not use the language to buy bread in a shop, this is their personal choice, and they're losing the language. And of course, pivotal here is the role of language activists. For instance, if the older generation doesn't feel the need to transfer the language to the younger generation, then the younger generation is less interested in receiving the language from the older generation. The language can be transferred only in practice, and practice can be in education, can be not studying the language, but education using the language, maybe some subjects in the school curricula. We have to think about some activity that would be where the language will be useful and used. Speaking about the sacral religious function of the language, if we use the example of Evenki language, they are believers of animism, put in brackets shamanism and Russian Orthodoxy. It's a mixture. And of course, the Soviet times left a significant trace on the development of Evenki language. The most progressive, the most advanced, the most sophisticated speakers of Evenki language are mostly of older generation. They can create good texts in the language. They can speak the language. Very few can do this. And not all the native speakers can do this, because native speakers is a broad notion. Even people who know some words, specific words, they know the language, but at a different level. So the full-fledged native speakers in certain cases do not know the word for a drum, for instance. So they use this word outside their religious and cultural traditions. This was part of their language of everyday use. It is interesting that full-fledged native speaker may not know a basic word, which is known by people who live in the city. And it can be young person going to various ethnic and cultural and language activities and using the knowledge of the language on the internet. So this such a gap between these two knowledges. Olga, what about you? What's the situation? I would like to clarify. Are we talking about the kids who stay in the boarding schools? No, it's not only boarding schools. Evenk, Tungus, Manjurs, there is about 12 peoples in the territory of Russia do not have the practice or habit of transferring the language within the family from one generation to another. It's rather an exception. I would approach this first, we have to clarify why people reject using the language. I think it's an in-depth issue. It's a very complex issue, but it seems to me that the core issue why people are not using the language, native tongue, is that there is no economic benefit to know the language. Maybe we need some certain positive discrimination. I know that in the north, they introduced a situation when the Khanty and Mansi, there was a boom for people. They boosted the number of people who wanted to register as Khanty and Mansi, although they did not speak the language, but just registered as ones. Then, of course, we need to work with parents in the families so that even if the parents do not speak the language, we need to discuss the topic of bilingual usage of the languages. Until now, many people doubt that a kid would benefit from knowledge of two languages. They simply fear that the kid will not learn the Russian language or will speak it badly if he or she goes to kindergarten. So it seems to me that we need really a positive discrimination in this respect. Second, we need to work with the parents, with the social groups. We need to increase the prestige, the status of the native language. And I would agree with Teimuraz about the niche. When the language occupies a certain niche, that's great. And it's probably works for its preservation and protection. And it works for the republics where the language is closely connected to the belief, to the religion. I think these three factors are important. And first, we need to look at the reasons why the people reject using the language. And then think of using these or that instruments, because the instruments, the tools can be totally useless if we do not know the reason why. I would agree with Olga. I think it's very important what she said. Now about positive discrimination. It's a very arguable question. We can have disputes about this. And sometimes it does not produce positive results. Sometimes the worse the situation, the more people would like to get into their own language. We as linguists, as philologists, for us to understand the situation and to make decisions, we sometimes do not have enough knowledge in the field of psychology, in the field of people's thinking. For instance, children's psychology. What is in the mindset of a little child who comes across using a situation of using two languages? Maybe this child treats one language as a better one, better than the other one. And there is certain resistance inside the child. So we need to understand the thinking behind this situation. We also need to know what people think of the older generation about this bilingual situation. I think it's a big field for research, especially psychologists, because the linguists and philologists, without understanding how the conscience of people works, we cannot move forward. By the end of our discussion, I will probably formulate a thesis, a certain idea. If among our listeners and viewers, there are people who belong to national groups and know the language, we suggest that you transfer your life to the national language. Maybe you should start creating certain content. It can be video blogs, or just basically your communications in Vkontakte or in Instagram using your native tongue. Please use it. If you are a native speaker, a major one in Russia, think about your cultural and national heritage. It is not the material culture that is important. It's not the drums and decorations. Open the doors, that open the window to your life and soul for the language. Be open to the language. Well, usually people recognize this importance when they get older. Maybe some people say that when you are retired, when you become a pensioner, you have more time for the language, but maybe it's too late. So we are calling for the people who have some national ethnic backgrounds, but those who belong to the title nations and bigger nations, please learn more about multiformity of our society as a whole, of all Russian citizens. And now short conclusions from Timuraz and Olga.
So first of all, I would like to express my gratitude to all those who are with us, who have been with us the whole session, and I think that during the whole session we were discussing the fact that the language is a living tool and mechanism, and it depends only on us, on each one of us, if it will still develop and live on. But the support from the state is also very important, and the work of the community as well. Timuraz, would you add a few words? So I would like to say that thank you so much for your attention, for your interest to these roundtable talks. It's very interesting to share the experience and to know what the situation is like in other regions. And I want all the national language speakers understand that each one of us, even those who do not speak the national language, he is the one who can decide the fate of the language. This is very important to understand and to remember. Thank you so much, dear friends, for being with us, for sharing with us your ideas and your enthusiasm as well. Our session is almost over. Let's wish luck, wish all the best to our audience. We have hundreds of peoples and many time zones as well.